never believed in ghosts. Not really. You hear stories, truckers love their tales. Some talk about hitchhikers that vanish, lights that follow you for miles, or radio static whispering your name. I always figured it was just a long-haul driver's imagination running wild. But after what I saw on Route 191 in Arizona, I know better. It was a Tuesday night, late summer. The air was thick with heat, even after sundown. I was running a load of industrial supplies from El Paso up to Salt Lake City. Pretty standard route, nothing special. Then I took a wrong turn. I shouldn't have. I've been driving rigs for 12 years. Know these roads like the back of my hand. But my GPS flickered out for a moment, and when it came back, it showed a new route. A shortcut. Said it would shave off 45 minutes. I don't take shortcuts. They usually mean trouble, bad roads, no stops, or worse. But for some damn reason, I turned anyway. The road was narrow, just a strip of cracked asphalt winding into the desert. No streetlights, no signs, just the dark yawning ahead. My headlights barely cut through it. Then I saw something up ahead. A man standing on the shoulder. Middle of nowhere, no car, no lights. Just a guy, dressed in dark clothes, staring at me as I rolled closer. Something about him was off. Too still, too thin, like a shadow peeled off the road and stood upright. I wasn't about to stop, but as I passed, he grinned. And then he was inside my truck. I damn near drove off the road. My hands jerked the wheel, tires skidding against the cracked asphalt. I slammed the brakes, heart hammering against my ribs. I knew I'd just seen him outside. There was no way in hell he could be inside my cab. But in the dim glow of the dashboard, I saw movement in the passenger seat. A shape, shifting, thin, wrong. I didn't want to look. I did not want to see what was sitting next to me, but I turned my head, and there he was. Not quite a man. Not anymore. His limbs were too long, his fingers stretched out on my dashboard like they were growing across it. His grin was too wide, his teeth like splinters of bone. His eyes, God help me, his eyes weren't human. Too black, too deep, like looking into a well that had no bottom. He didn't speak, just sat there, grinning, waiting. I hit the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel as I tried to outrun whatever the hell I had just let inside. But the thing next to me didn't move, didn't flinch. It just grinned wider. Then, without a sound, it leaned in, and it whispered my name. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told it my name. I hadn't said a damn word. The truck roared down that lonely road, engine groaning as I pushed it past safe limits. My hands were slick with sweat, knuckles white against the wheel. I didn't dare look at the thing beside me again. But I could feel it. Too close. Too still. Then the radio crackled. At first, just static. Then laughter. Low, wheezing, like something with rotten lungs trying to chuckle. I reached for the dial with a shaking hand, twisting it hard. The laughter grew louder, warped, like something inside the truck was laughing now, using the speakers to mock me. Turn left, it whispered. I didn't. The road stretched on, endless and empty. My GPS had gone dark. Just a blank screen staring back at me. No signal, no map, nothing. Then the thing beside me spoke again. You're going the wrong way. My stomach lurched. A shape loomed ahead. A turn I swore hadn't been there before. A narrow dirt road, vanishing into the darkness of the desert. The headlights caught something at the edge of the road. A sign. A rusted, bullet-riddled road sign that said, Nowhere Road. The whispering in the truck turned to screaming. The screams, God, the screams. Not just one voice. Dozens. Hundreds. Layered over each other. Wailing. Shrieking. Laughing. A sound so unnatural it made my vision blur, my skull feel like it was splitting open. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel. I forced myself to look at the road at the wrong turn ahead. Turn left, the thing beside me hissed. No, I wasn't about to listen to that thing. I kept my foot on the gas, barreling forward. Then the truck died. Just like that. Engine cut out, dash went dark, headlights flickered off. Dead silent. My 18-wheeler, my beast of a machine, snuffed out like a candle. The only light left was the pale glow of the moon and the faint outline of that rusted road sign. And I wasn't alone. I could feel them now. Outside. Watching. Waiting. Shadows gathered along the roadside, shifting shapes just beyond what my eyes could fully register. Too many of them. Too still. And then they started walking toward the truck. The door locks clicked open, and the thing beside me whispered, "You should have turned, Jake." I never told it my name. The doors unlocked themselves. I didn't touch the controls. I didn't do a damn thing. But I heard the distinct, mechanical click of each lock popping open, one after the other, like an invitation. The figures outside stepped closer. Not walking, gliding. Their shapes were wrong, their bodies stretching and bending in ways people shouldn't. Their eyes. God, their eyes. Hollow pits, blacker than the sky above. And they were all looking at me. My breath came in short gasps. Move. Move. My brain screamed at my body, but I was frozen. Stuck. The cab felt too small, too tight, suffocating. Then the thing beside me laughed. A dry, scraping sound like wind blowing through a dead tree. Like it knew what was coming. The shadows reached the truck. Fingers too long, too sharp, began curling over the edge of the window, smearing something dark, something oily across the glass. I snapped out of it. I wasn't going out like this. I slammed my fist against the ignition. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. The figures were climbing onto the cab now, clawing at the doors. The thing in the passenger seat just sat there, grinning. I did the only thing I could. I grabbed the gear shift, yanked it into neutral, and stomped the emergency brake release. Gravity took over. The road had been on a slight incline. I hadn't even noticed before. But now the truck rolled backward, slow at first, then picking up speed. The figures didn't chase me. They just stood there, watching. But the thing inside my cab? It wasn't done yet, because as the truck rolled back into the darkness, it turned to me and whispered, "You can't outrun this." Then it vanished. The thing was just gone. 1 second, it was sitting there, grinning like it knew every dark secret buried in my soul. The next, empty seat. But the air inside the cab still felt wrong. Heavy, electric, like a storm was about to hit. And outside, the figures hadn't moved. They just stood there, lined up along the roadside like shadows carved out of the night. Watching. Waiting. The truck kept rolling backward. 5 miles per hour. 10. 15. Gaining speed down the incline. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grab the key. I twisted it so hard I thought it would snap, but the engine roared back to life. I slammed it into gear and floored it. The truck fishtailed, tires shrieking against the cracked asphalt, but I didn't care. I just drove, barreling down that road like the devil himself was breathing down my neck. And maybe he was. Because when I looked in the mirror, just a quick glance, just for a second, I saw something running after me. Not the figures. Not those things that had watched me in silence. Something worse. Something fast. It moved like a blur, its limbs too long, too twisted, snapping into place with every stride. Its mouth was open too wide, too deep, teeth stretching beyond where its jaw should even end. And its eyes? They were mine. Not just similar. Mine. Like I was staring at my own reflection in a funhouse mirror built in hell. And then it smiled. A cold shock of fear hit me so hard I nearly lost control of the truck. I didn't look again. I just drove. And that was when the road disappeared. 1 second I was tearing down that cracked strip of asphalt, the truck roaring beneath me. The next, the road was just gone. No skid marks. No gravel. No transition. Just nothing. My headlights stabbed into an endless black void. No ground. No horizon. Like the world had been erased right in front of me. I didn't have time to think. The truck's front tires crossed the threshold and I felt the cab tilt forward. I slammed the brakes. The entire rig shuddered, metal groaning as it fought momentum. I felt my body lurch forward against the seatbelt, stomach twisting into knots. The whole truck trembled on the edge of that impossible drop, teetering like a coin about to fall. Then a hand slammed against my window. I jumped, nearly screaming. But it wasn't a hand. It was mine, or something that looked exactly like mine, pressed against the glass from the outside. Pale, bloodless, the fingers twitching, shifting, nails cracked and too long. Then, from the darkness ahead, I heard it. A voice. My voice. "Come on, Jake, step forward." No, I wasn't moving. I wasn't going anywhere. The truck was still half suspended over the abyss, but I threw it into reverse, tires screaming as they fought for traction. The engine roared. I didn't look outside. I didn't look at the thing with my hand. I just gunned it. The tires caught. With a violent lurch, the truck jerked backward, the front end slamming down onto solid ground. The entire rig shook, metal rattling like a freight train off the rails. And suddenly, the road was back. Just like that. Cracked, faded asphalt stretching into the desert like nothing had ever changed. And the figures? The shadows? Gone. Like they had never been there at all. I sat there, engine idling, hands clamped so tight on the wheel my knuckles burned. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. Then, from the passenger seat, a whisper. Low, close, right in my ear. See you soon. I didn't look. I just drove. I didn't stop driving. I didn't blink. I barely breathed. The highway reappeared like nothing had ever been wrong. The cracked asphalt, the yellow lines, the endless stretch of desert on either side. My GPS flickered back on, calmly recalculating like I hadn't just driven into some kind of hell. But I knew better. I wasn't safe. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I drove until the first sliver of dawn cracked over the horizon, bathing the desert in that cold, bluish light. I spotted a gas station up ahead. One I knew for sure hadn't been there before. Didn't matter. I pulled in anyway. The truck rattled to a stop, and for the first time in hours, I let out a shaky breath. My hands ached from gripping the wheel so hard. My throat was raw. My whole body felt like it had been run through a meat grinder. I stepped out of the cab, legs shaking under me, and went inside. It was a rundown place, flickering fluorescent lights, a couple aisles of snacks, a tired-looking old man behind the counter. He barely glanced up as I stumbled in. "You look like hell," he muttered. I didn't answer. I just grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and walked up to the counter, my hands still unsteady as I fished out some cash. That's when I saw it. The bulletin board. It was covered in old, faded missing persons flyers. Truckers, travelers, hikers, dozens of them. And right in the center, pinned like a trophy, a photo of me. Same clothes. Same hat. Same damn expression I had right that second. Like it had been taken tonight. My stomach dropped. My mouth went dry. I turned to the old man behind the counter, my heart hammering against my ribs. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice barely more than a rasp. He just sighed, looked me up and down like he'd seen this before. And then he said, "You took the wrong road, didn't you?" My blood ran cold. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because I already knew I never really left. I stared at the old man, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. "What do you mean?" I asked, but deep down I already knew. He just shook his head, rubbing his hands together like he'd had this conversation before. "You truckers," he muttered, "always think you're different, that you'll be the one to get away." I felt ice crawl up my spine. Get away from what? I glanced back at the bulletin board. The missing posters. My picture. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. I should have run. I should have gotten back in my truck and never looked back. But instead, I asked the question that would haunt me forever. What happens to the ones who don't get away? The old man looked at me. His eyes were tired. Sad. They stay on the road. The door behind me creaked open. A gust of desert wind howled through the station, and in the glass reflection of the fridge door, I saw them. Standing in the doorway. Waiting. The figures from the road. Still as death. Still watching. But there was something different this time. One of them, the closest one, looked just like me. Same height. Same clothes. Same face. It grinned, wide and unnatural. And then it whispered in my own voice, "Your turn." The lights flickered. The air turned to ice. And just like that, everything went dark. Epilogue: They found my truck 3 days later. Engine running, doors locked from the inside. But the cab was empty. No sign of me. Just an old, faded missing persons flyer pinned to the seat, with my picture on it.